Hey everybody, I'm Stryker here at KROQ, and today I get to talk to Jake Bercovici and Julian Casablancas. It's Julian and the Voidz, minus some of the Voidz, hanging out. How are you guys today?
Great.
Great.
This is a broad question, Julian. How's life? It's the most broad question that'll happen in this discussion, just so you know.
Life is good, it's weird, great.
Yeah, the tour is fun. Are you enjoying it?
I am, yes, I am.
All right, and Jake, what about you? How are you feeling? How's the tour? You're in LA the next couple days. Your hometown, by the way?
Yes, indeed. It's good to be home. Tour's been a lot of fun. I feel like we're getting a show rhythm, and yeah, things are good.
Nice. I'm holding Tyranny right here. So, Julian, first off, why did you choose the guys that you are with in this band?
I would say spirit, character, taste, musical ninja skills. I don't know.
And how'd you meet Jake?
We met at a seance, actually. Our hands touched on the Ouija board. We just mutual friends, actually. Yeah, and it's just we just happened to be like, I guess, 1 degree of separation away from knowing each other, and then we did, and just musical chemistry with everyone from there on.
Got it. So if you guys, of course, know of Julian from The Strokes and you have not listened to this, just listen to it from beginning to end, and if there's one word for me to describe the album, and this is going to sound goofy to people who haven't
Close
listened,
your eyes the whole time.
I'm going to say colors. It screams colors at me, and like just, that's the one word. But I want to know, what is your imprint on this record? Tell me everything you did on this record, Julian.
Everything I did.
I mean, are you in shock? Did you write every single note of the music?
That's good.
I don't know. It changes song to song, but I would say if I could, short story, long,
Yeah.
general way, I guess I have a pool of ideas that I write from and share with the brothers in the band, and the ones that had magical fusion chemistry and became something greater, we focused on, and then there was other parts that people brought in, were like, hey, check out this thing that I did, and when they were awesome, and then they would become songs and we'd work on them, such as maybe like the beginning of Human Sadness. And Where No Eagles Fly was something that Jake sent me. That's how that song started. And then mixed with other parts. And then also, once we were all together and recorded, a couple of jams and things that happened naturally when we just played together developed. So I would say that, and then basically we're all in the same room, whatever people feel strongly about, whatever we all sign off on.
Nice.
I'm still kind of, I don't know, musical directoring in some ways, I guess, but definitely everyone's point of view is on the same page, I think.
That's awesome.
For most things.
One thing that I also think of when I listen to this album, you guys, I haven't listened to an album in a long time that made me create pictures in my own head, create mini movies, videos, life situations, and things like that. Oh. There's so many cool things going on. And so, like, for example, in Crunch Punch, I love this song, by the way.
Thanks,
Crunch
man.
Punch is awesome. This is like if you guys were from outer space, an incredible band, got on a spaceship and landed on the Sunset Strip, and somewhere between 55 and 79, opened it up, got on drugs, and just played like crazy. That's what that song feels like to me.
And
I'm
shoot the
like,
video?
Yes, shoot this. Let's make that video right there. But I just like to know, I don't need to know what songs are about, but like the inception of that song, Julian. How did that song come together? Crunch Punch.
Crunch Punch. I think the riff was something that I played. I was playing with Alex, the drummer, and Jeff Keys, I believe.
Yeah.
And I was playing the guitar, and we were in a studio, just kind of playing with some ideas. And yeah, I had the melody and the chords, and it didn't get joined with that chorus until much later. That was a chorus we did maybe a year or two later.
Really?
It was in a different song. And then in between the verse and the chorus, all the other parts are things that happened, little jam, cool moments, and the solo was kind of how I did a lot of Stroke solos. I guess I wrote it with JP, and then kind of brought it and worked it out with Amir and Jeremy, with the guitarist. Salt
There's a
and
lot
Pepper.
going on in the songs, it feels like. It almost makes my head spin in a good way, like, wow, you guys are working together. How are we going to make this sound like a song, but with all these cool noises happening at the same time? Does that make sense? Did it ever just scramble your brain completely, Julian? Like, what the hell am I doing right now?
Yeah, definitely.
Jake, what about
Yeah,
you when,
for sure.
when you're putting these songs
You know, I'm
together?
remembering as we're talking about this that this is going to sound pretentious, but there was a Matisse exhibit at the Met or something when we were recording in New York,
Right.
and there was one section where it described how he would just paint over canvases over and over again to create these textures, and that he'd leave parts of like version 6, and then on version 17 he'd leave another part. And I think that some of the songs have that texture to them because they are they sort of have layers to them that are not just like, hey, check out this G to C thing, cool, that's a song. So it's something that we actually really thought about the texture to, and when you
Those are chords, by the way.
yeah,
Okay.
music chords.
How do you
And-
spell Matisse?
Matisse.
I have no idea, but it
Henri
sounds good.
Matisse. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was. I thought about that as we were making the records. Like, oh, this is kind of what we're doing. It's just like layers and textures. You kind of achieve your own shades and tones that way.
That's really cool. The album starts out with a song called Take Me in Your Army. And you know, when you're a kid, time doesn't go by very fast because you're not like making a widget every day. Everything's a new experience for you. And then when you get older, many people have jobs where it's like the same thing and you're like, time flies so fast. So when I listen to this song,
Is that why that is?
yeah, because you don't have the same new experiences anymore. That's kind of like a theory and something I read a long time ago.
Learned
So I'm
something new.
not making that up, but it's kind
Thank
of...
you. You
So
taught me something.
Good, yeah. So like if you work in the same
Goodbye now.
job, goodbye. Dude. It's just like the same thing. Like time goes by fast. You're just making widgets. This sounds like a guy who like makes widgets every day, and then he's like, I can't take this anymore. My wife and kids live in a suburb. I'm not going to cheat on my wife, but I'm going to join a fight club. That's what it sounds like. He's going to join a fight club, so he's staying out late every night. That's what this song sounds like. Do I sound like a nut job to you right now?
No, I like it. I love it. I love that it's, you kind of hope that it inspires,
Non-widget
fires
making.
off whatever. I mean, in each person's mind,
Okay.
you expect it to fire off different things. So, but I'm loving what you're saying.
Okay. And what about the lyrics for that? Don't tell me what it means, but did you sit and write something for this? In a one-stop shop, or were you in a shower? Like, how did it come about?
Some of the lines I wrote, and some of them, the Take Me in Your Army just kind of happened. And that was kind of like a cool, weird thing that I just didn't resist. And then when the album was kind of done, and the last song was Off to War, and the album was called Tyranny.
Yeah.
So that almost kind of fit in. That was like a last piece that you'd think that like was the first idea, and then everything was built around it.
Yeah.
But it was probably the other way around.
Is Mutually Assured Destruction the fastest song you've played, or not?
Fastest.
Not in terms of being 2.5 minutes long, but it seems faster. It's got the drums. It seems like a fast, more punky song a little bit. Am I off on that?
Aggressive.
Yeah, aggressive. But without being mean, which is why I like it.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I've done a couple of different harder songs, but I'd say overall this is probably the most aggressive, probably.
Yeah.
Not overall, but just like 3 or 4 spots.
All right, so another song on here. When I got to it, I was like, wait a minute, is my CD player working? And I was listening on CD. I listen on CD because sometimes I think the experience is better, like you're in your car and it's like you put it in. It just, I don't know, maybe it's a mental thing, but it sounds different to me and better. But Human Sadness is like 11 minutes long or so. Is there going to be a movie, Human Sadness, a short movie? Is there anything there? And like, how did this whole thing come about? And if you haven't listened to this record, like, I'm geeking out completely talking about it because it's that good and moved me that much. So could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, actually, we're doing a video. I wouldn't call it a short. I guess it is becoming a short movie because it's so. Every time you work on this song, I mean, when we worked on it, it's such a. It's more like working on like 4 or 5 songs. It's so many things. It takes so long. So we've been working on it for a while, almost a month now. It's almost done. Almost done.
The video's almost done.
Yeah.
And is there like a director? Are you the director? And where are you doing? Are you doing it in LA, in New
There's
York?
a couple of people actually, different directors involved.
Really?
Yeah.
Is this something that you want to showcase in a theater for the first time, or do you just throw this on the web and say, have at it, everybody?
I mean, they were talking about that. I don't know. I'll leave that to smarter marketing minds or vibe creators, because I don't know.
So you just mentioned the word marketing. It's your record label, Colt Records. It's your responsibility, or is it? Or is there a team, and is it different than working with a major label like RCA, I guess it was? What's it like?
Yeah, there's a team. It's definitely, it's different than working a major label. They have, hundreds of people working there and hundreds and thousands of dollars going into that, just having that many people. So it's different, but I think that the things you can do by having your own label is pretty liberating. Like, we just wanted to make it cheap and, just like what I thought records should be. So that's why it's like $387. Yeah, just things like that. I don't think on a major label they just would say no, basically. So,
can you talk about the experience, the top 2 negative things and top 2 positive things from your experience putting out, I guess, 5 Strokes records with a big label?
I would say a little bit of like not getting the vibe and lack of integrity and some kind of like the way, like I remember, not all the records, but like sometimes it was like you felt like they were slotting in at the time, I'm gonna say Sum 41 promo, agenda, and it was kind of like, this is not the vibe of what I want to be doing. So that would be one negative thing. One positive thing would be, like I said, having all that money behind it, so it's just like when it comes out, it's like a little more visible, or a lot more visible. Can I do one of each? Or do
Yes,
I do
that's
two?
good.
Okay.
You're good. You can stay. You can stay longer. All right, another song I want to talk about, Where No Eagles Fly. And what I get in this is like, we are just, the majority of human beings are just phony baloney. And like, everyone just complains about this and that. But when you go home, you watch DVR, and you go to sleep, and you've done nothing but complain, and you've taken no action, and that's kind of what I hear in that song. And I'm like, put your money where your mouth is, basically, is when I listen to that song.
Nice.
And so, Jake, what do you remember about recording that song?
I had this demo that I had made one night when we were not recording, I guess right before we did the record, and it was actually started as just this really sort of breakneck speed, fast version of the song, and I sent it to Jules, or just the bass line and a crude drum beat, and he came up with this melody line over it on guitar and vocal, and we slowed it down, and then one by one the other guys came in and heard it and started putting their fingerprints all over it, and it just became something really quick. I think, was that the first one we did with Salt and Pepper? When we were all in a room for the first time. I think that might be the first song where it was like, okay, all of us are in a room together, we're going to do takes of this song now. And I think it has some of that energy of us discovering each other in a cool way.
Nice. Do you think, or here's a straight question here, why is it that fans of an artist who claim to be fans are such jerks online to the people they like?
To get noticed, right?
I mean, I think that it's, I think the whole nature of comment sections and I think it can be a healthy thing, and I read them, and if I'm like, doing something that has nothing to do with me, if I'm, reading an article, I just read the comments, it's just fascinating, but I just think that the problem is the anonymity. I think it's just like unhealthy, toxic, kind of like everyone's just like trying to let off anger steam, and it just creates like this negative, like, you know what I mean? You could read a story about someone rescuing a cat in a tree, and they'll just like,
somebody like, I hate cats.
Some kind of like racism argument happening, or just yeah. So I think that the anonymity. I think if everyone had to be like, if it was your name and it was there forever, I think it would be a little more kind of productive. I guess, people could still say like that was terrible, but it would be like, and me personally, I don't know. I don't like negatively criticizing things, so.
Me neither. I just can't wrap my head around it, why they would do it like, oh my God, this band is my favorite. Album comes out, you guys stink. Your album stinks right now. This doesn't sound like the album 9 years ago. I don't get that. Why support the people you like?
I think people just want to be heard, you know what I mean? So they want to like, and sometimes if ever people are liking something, I always sense that if there's like an article that's really like praising something, you know that everyone's going to try to counter it. And if it's kind of a negative article, people are going to be like, what are you talking about? That guy's great. Yeah, but like I said, I just think the anonymity makes it a little kind of darker and less like, you know, passing it forward than it should be, I guess, in some kind of... It can be like a positive thing. Or not, it doesn't have to be a positive thing, but it's a little tinge of toxicity,
Right.
I think, with the anonymity and the kind of lashing out.
Jake, do you think people can be creative that have had a non-chaotic childhood?
Yeah, for sure. I think that there is an obvious thread that you can see with certain sort of histories that people have that bring out an accessibility to, I don't know, tapping into some stuff, but I don't think it's a prerequisite to actually, you know, making great work or anything like that. I think that perhaps art is often, or can be, you know, about certain, as much as it can be about celebration and everyone just like dancing happily on a mountain where there's no problems. I think that generally people are drawn into art that has some sort of internal conflict to it or some sort of friction that represents the human condition. And I think people who go through tough stuff in childhood or not even, it could be anything, like really
Right.
tough, like I only had like one sandwich a day or you know, even worse or better. It emotionally, yeah, I think it probably informs it to a degree, but not a rule.
I think pain and disappointment and those things can definitely be motivators to push you in anything, or failure or those kind of things, for sure. It's probably not exclusive if, you know, people are, I guess, are like compassionate or ambitious or driven or, I don't know, feel like they need to do something to help or something. But I definitely think that, yeah, those pain, disappointment, failure, that those can be, you know, motivators, I guess.
I totally agree. Or someone stick something like, you said it could just having one sandwich a day, but it could be something that's so terribly worse, like your mom abandoned you when you were 9 and you were by yourself in an apartment or something. Right. Or like a coach said, you stink, you can't ever play on this team, and then you're like, well, I'm going to show you. Just watch, or we're not going to hire you at this gig. And then
AKA Michael Jordan.
There you go. Exactly. When I listen to Tyranny, it sounds like, if I was the one writing it, like, wow, I got to be in the middle of late night lunacy to come up with all this stuff. Seriously. It's like, I want to walk down hallways at 4 in the morning after being out all night, and then I'm going to put all this together. But that's not really the lifestyle these days, Julian. So is it difficult to make this music in life right now?
Well, actually, I mean, we couldn't start making noise. We were recording in this studio that we kind of makeshift our own. It wasn't really a music studio. We turned it into this little series of chambers. But we couldn't. We were above the Strand bookstore in New York City. It's not there anymore. The Strand is. Our studio's not there anymore. Okay. Strand bookstore, rest in peace. But we couldn't start making noise until about 7, so we basically worked vampire hours. So we actually did have a mega late night lifestyle when you're doing that record.
Yeah.
And I still like to party, bro. You know?
I don't. Sometimes it sounds like it's an old man talking, not you, but just anyone that says like, "There's going to be no musical idols in 10 years for kids today." Is that old man talk, or is that real talk, Julian? Or Jake?
Like 10 years from
Today, like there's a 15-year-old who's listening to I don't know who. Is that person going to be great in 10 years and relevant and important and inspiring?
I think there's always those people for every generation. I just think that the landscape sort of changes around what that means. I think that it's become very much about branding and marketing and packaging and watchability and this whole weird constellation of like Uber people. But I think that also there's the scene has been widening with sort of the DIY stuff and the ability to make your own music. So I think that there'll always be heroes. I just think that there'll probably be different classifications of them.
I think that there's a distinction that I find I make now relatively clearly, but I think that people who listen to music. For me, there's a big distinction between entertainment and art in music. And so if you're looking at entertainment, I could see that, the answer would be no, but I think that it's always been that way. I think it's detecting who are the artists, and that's trickier in the present, I think. And it's a bummer that the trend is always, it's always like, no one realizes what's cool. It's only like 10, 20 years later, like, oh, that was the cool thing. And then that becomes mainstream. And that's kind of what we strive to do with this record, or even with cult records and stuff. I just feel like try to, maybe not succeeding at the present second, but trying to make something weirder and more artistic mainstream. I don't know if I derailed or made my point, but that's the end of my thought.
I get it. It's good. When the Daft Punk album came out, Random Access Memories, I got to talk with Guy Man and Tomas. Instant Crush, I talked to them in depth about, and for the record, it's the best song on the album. I've played it many times on the radio.
You're very nice,
and
thank you.
You're welcome. What's your takeaway? Do you like the song?
Yeah. I'm honored that they let me join their gleaming, triumphant record. Yeah, it was cool. I mean, I feel like for me though, it's great. It's great.
Did you get a Grammy from that?
I did, yeah.
Nice. Was that how many have you won? Like 9?
Yeah, actually, can you announce me as Grammy Award-winning artist?
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to retape and say that. Hey, did you have those lyrics forever for Instant Crush, or is that something you came up with after you got music from those guys?
Funny thing, they told me the whole scene that they wanted, the whole story, and they had like this kind of picture of this like summer crush. I was kind of based on their story. I was like, you sure you don't want to call it Summer Crush? Because it was like like meeting a girl when you're like a kid in some place, but you're like kind of with your parents, and some magic happens, and it's like, but you kind of never see her again, and it was just like some moment in time that you'll never forget or something. Anyway, they were describing it better and more French, more, I don't know, nostalgic, romantic, or whatever. But yeah, so I wrote down the specific lyrics which is a good exercise in like showing you the mystery and trying to make lyrics work, because it clearly did that, but it just didn't work. It just didn't it was just somehow just flat. And so then we did the opposite, and we just basically, I sang a bunch, I just made stuff up, and and then whatever just sounded good kind of became lyrics, and that actually weirdly gave that feeling more than the ones that were like specifically like, I saw you on that beach that one summer day, or whatever it was.
Like a Grease song.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but I mean, that's kind of the vibe though. They got the guy, what is it, Paul Williams?
Yeah, Paul Williams.
He actually wrote lyrics for it at first. And I had those, and I was kind of working, I had my own version that was the story, and then I kind of mixed some of his, because I was trying to just, I wanted to, collab and be down or whatever, but it just didn't, it felt kind of like that, like, those like professional lyrics that make total sense and kind of hit it on the head, but that artistically kind of don't have the same magic inspiratu power.
Nice. When you got all these guys in the band, and we talked about there's a lot going on in the songs, is it like 80 hours of rehearsal before show number 1?
Surprising.
We played the songs as a band. I think it's funny, it's like we were kind of rehearsing while we were recording, so I think rehearsals have just been more about fine-tuning and translating the feeling of the tones and the record live. Rehearsing, actually, the songs were because I mean we're playing them on the record, so it wasn't like, it was really just about getting tones right and having everything be balanced and stuff, which is probably still happening a little bit, but I feel like every show we're learning a lot more, and so I think rehearsal days are behind us, if anything.
I agree. It seems crazy, but we actually, everything we did live we played, like we actually made a point of, I was always a stickler of making a point that we need to play the song live fully so that someone could just walk in the room and hear it.
Yeah.
So it was not like we had to learn crazy magic tricks. I mean, there's a few crazy magic tricks that Sean, the producer, put in that we had to learn. But that's like, you know, but 99% of it was, or 98% of it at least. I don't know how you would even quantify it, but most of it, almost all of it, was done live, so
That's
it was in our
incredible.
wheelhouse. As soon as we started rehearsing,
Yeah.
it sounded close to the thing.
Got it. That makes total sense. That's really cool. I don't know if a lot of bands do it that way. That's awesome.
I think a lot of people go it's so easy to just get into overdub mode and like, hey, it's drum day and then it's bass day, and so we didn't really do that. I think we tried it first and it just wasn't true. It didn't feel right.
All right, guys, I really appreciate you talking.
Thanks, man.
so
Thank
long
you,
with me.
man,
Yeah,
for the
thank you.
love.
You got it, of course.
I was gonna see the thumb wrestling for a
That's
second.
Jake, and that's Julian. I'm Stryker. And listen, comedians, artists, actors, bands, they put in the work to put out something good. It takes a long time to get really good, and the audience has to put in work too and listen to the damn album and exist with it.
Cue the hate comments.
No, seriously. Look at that guy's shirt up, buttoned up to his neck, his misshaped head. He's asking terrible questions. But spend some time with it, and you're going to get lost. It's such a fun record. It's going to create so many cool pictures in your mind, and you're going to like it. So it's The Voidz, Julian Casablancas, or the other way around. And I'm Stryker. Bye, guys.